The eyes are closed here. Let's allow them to open. And let's inhale and sweep both arms straight up and overhead. Maybe we lift the gaze. Maybe that's not appropriate. Check in on that shoulder functionality. And then we'll release the hands back down to our legs or thighs. Let's turn both palms down if they're not. Keep the right palm where it is and extend the left arm towards the ceiling or sky. Think about keeping your head, nose, and middle of the cervical spine aligned as you take the left hand over towards the right for a little lateral edge expansion on that left side. If it feels more appropriate for you to have your right hand grounded, you can do that. Having the right hand on the thigh sometimes gives a little bit more space in that intercostal expansion. And then we'll come back to neutral. Left hand mirrors the right. Take a couple of rounds of breath here and feel that asymmetric capacity for respiration. Feel how the left side is different than the right side's capacity to breathe. And then when you feel ready, let's balance that out. So we'll take the right hand ceiling or skyward. Left hand can stay on the thigh or it can move down to the floor if that feels better. Now we're gonna lean over to the left, looking for that big lateral expansion here. Feeling how the respiration is impacting that intercostal musculature space. And when you feel balanced, left to right, let's come back to neutral. And again, just a couple of cycles of breath here. Trying to feel into your new capacity to breathe. And let's do this one more time. So right hand's gonna stay planted or go to the floor. Left hand's gonna reach ceiling or skyward. And we're gonna lean over towards the right. This time, really think about expanding your breath into that left lung, into the leftmost lateral edge of that left lung. And when you're ready, we'll come back to neutral. And let's do the same thing to the second side. Left hand plants, right hand reaches ceiling or sky. Think about keeping that head positioning, middle of the cervical spine. And we extend and reach. And then draw breath into that right lateral edge, really using our lungs to create expansion here. And when you feel balanced, we'll come back to neutral and maybe just a moment of appreciation for the space we now have. The next time that you inhale, let's use that to sweep the arms straight up, ceiling or sky. Once again, maybe you lift the gaze if that feels appropriate for you. And then we'll release the hands. And let's transition to hands and knees tabletop. Just have your blanket props handy. And set a base position for your tabletop. With an exhale, sink the seat back into child's pose. And as you land your way into child's pose, kind of just envision or feel where the center point is of your shape. Really think about that center point of the shape as kind of the guiding force here. And then from that center point, we're gonna try to take our weight over to the right side. So like a shift in the hips over to the right, like you're trying to get the sacrum to be kind of perfectly balanced right over the right heel. And then we'll come back to neutral. And we'll do the same thing to the second side. So weight shifting over to the left. Goal is to get the weight to the left, right? So maybe we're envisioning the weight being kind of middle focused over the left heel, but if it's not there, that's fine. We're just trying to get the weight to the left. And then we'll come back to neutral and we'll pull our way forward to tabletop. And let's just do a little lateral sway for the hips here. And then when it feels appropriate, tailbone comes back to neutral. Let's extend our legs straight out in front of us for a little staff. And from staff, let's take our blanket props. So we'll have 2 blankets or towels folded from a shelf fold to a hot dog fold, and we'll stack those so we end up with kind of an approximation of a bolster, and we're going to tuck that underneath our knees. So a little forced or encouraged shortening of the hamstring space, and then let's just find a way into fold. If the props are not enough to take out the tension in the hamstrings, you could double up that top fold if you have enough space. And you can also just bring more knee bend in, right? The props are there as an encouragement, maybe as a forced encouragement, but if they're not enough or they're not providing the benefit, just shift and tweak them so that they can. So there's this little village that has been more or less monopolized by this single businesswoman. And she has, over the course of her life, built up this business empire. Started out with this little, we might even think of it as like a non-mobile pizza truck. Just this little tiny pizza stand. Give ourselves about 30 more seconds here. She made a really good pizza, and there's a really nice built-in profit margin in pizzas. So you ended up making a good bit of money. When it feels appropriate, let's bring ourselves back up into our staff. We're going to take our prop stack and we'll place that behind us. More or less, kind of in close proximity, we're probably going to end up tweaking it a little bit, but just roughly behind you. And then let's let both knees fall over to the left. And as they do that, we're going to slowly lower our torso down over this prop stack. And the bottom arm, since I didn't determine a side, can be used for a little headrest if that feels appropriate. It can also reach out in front of you or it can reach out behind you. Same options kind of with the top arm,
that can be in front of you for some stability. It can reach behind you. It can reach out in front of you. Whatever feels most appropriate for the placement. The goal here is to just create a nice lateral bend, and a lateral bend that allows you to get relative ease. So as you explore that top and bottom arm positioning, make sure that wherever you end up isn't causing any undue discomfort, isn't causing any inability to fully respirate. And maybe just let the eyes close and settle in. And so as this little pizza shack made more and more money, she started looking for ways to reinvest the profits. And so the first thing she did is she bought a building where she could move the pizza business. And that allowed for more opportunity to make money. A few years later, she had saved up enough where she bought a whole block of buildings. And she started renting it out to other local businesses. And she started making so much money that she started eventually buying the businesses that she was renting space to. And so slowly, over the course of a couple decades, she went from a little pizza shack to monopolizing this town, essentially owning every business that operated within this little community. The strength of this financial opportunity meant that she started to garner mass amounts of wealth. And that accumulation meant that she needed somewhere to store it. She owned the bank, so she could have kept it there. But she thought, why intermingle her money with the commoner's money? And so she set off on having a fortress built where she could keep her money and herself. have about 60 more seconds here on this first side. Think about where the inhale respiration is landing. And if that location that you're sending your breath is the most impactful place that it could be sent to. If it's not, shift towards more impactful location. And when it feels appropriate for you, let's use that top hand to press ourselves up. And we'll find our way back into staff, extending the legs out in front of us again. Now we're back in a place where we likely have some asymmetry, left to right. Lift through kind of some musculature engagement, the torso back up to vertical. And then we're headed back into a brief little forward fold. You can bend the knees here as much as is possible, or as much as is needed, much as is beneficial. We're not going to move the props because we're going to use them on the second side, but just finding your way back into a little fold. Last 15 seconds here. And when it feels appropriate, coming back into staff, bending the knees, letting them fall to the second side, and then slowly lowering our way down over that prop. Bottom arm can be restful, supportive of the head. Top arm can be behind you. It can extend overhead. It can be in front of you, anywhere that feels the most impactful for you this morning. Work there. And so this fortress started off with a perimeter wall. And when that was done, she decided she wanted a second. A wall inside the perimeter wall that would be taller, sturdier. With spikes. And a third wall inside the first two that would be even taller. Even more physical deterrence. Much sturdier. And then inside these three perimeter walls, this fortress of a house was built. And in the center of the house, in this massive concrete vault, was a safe room where she kept all of her wealth. It was also a place she retreated to whenever she felt threatened. Those threats weren't physical, but any type of threat. It was a quiet place, a quiet sanctuary where she felt safe, secure, at ease. It became a place where she would retreat to when storms rolled through. A place where she would retreat to when she just wanted to feel a little bit more at ease. Think about where you're directing your respiration. Make sure that you find the benefit in each cycle, that you maximize the exchange of breath in each inhale and each exhale. It's ourselves just 60 more seconds here on the second side. Continuing to find the maximum benefit in each cycle of respiration.
And when it feels appropriate for you, use that top hand to press ourselves up into a seat. In that seated space, extending our legs out and taking the top blanket or towel, and we're going to tuck that underneath our ankles. So it's just kind of at the heel space. The blanket, the second blanket, can stay right where it is, and then let's take a nice little forward fold. Give ourselves about 30 more seconds here, just balancing things out, thinking about the sacral balance, the left right torso balance, and the balance of our respiration, both how it's filling the left and right lung and how it's balanced between the inhale and the exhale. And when it's appropriate, we'll bring ourselves into the staff. We're going to take this blanket from our ankles and make one more tweak to it. So we're going to take a shelf fold and then a roll. And this roll, a little bit of density to it. So a nice tight roll. And that's going to come down at our ankles once again. And then we are going to lower ourselves onto our spine. For just a moment here, just feel the blanket underneath the lumbar and the blanket roll, lifting your ankles. And then when it feels appropriate for you, we're going to roll over onto our belly. With the blanket roll, lifting the ankles. And the second blanket right underneath the belly space. So we likely don't have to move that much, but you may want to tweak it a little bit. And then just a little crocodile pose. Breathing our way into the belly expansion, noting that this can feel a little bit different, I'll say. We don't often have additional pressure underneath the belly as we breathe. Really try to relax into that sensation, even if it feels a bit weird. As the weather started to get more drastic, where this woman lived, there began to be seasonal floods. And the floods would come and they would be fairly enormous. But she had built this fortress. Wasn't necessarily designed for preventing flooding, but it worked great. The three walls were like three protective membranes. They were staggered in height, so they ended up, even if the first wall was breached in a flood, the second wall would provide a buffer. Second wall had never been breached, but if it ever was, the third wall would do the same. And so when the storms came, she retreated to her safe room, her security space, and she waited them out. Give ourselves 60 more seconds here. Just feeling your breath push against that blanket underneath you. And eventually, when it feels appropriate, let's just use the feet to move that blanket at the ankles out of the way. And then we're going to roll onto our backs. Blanket underneath the lumbar. Knees can be bent here or the bottoms of the feet together, whatever feels the most impactful for you. We'll give ourselves just 60 more seconds here with this prop underneath us. Think about what the sacrum is doing and what the middle of the sternum is doing as you have this arch in the lumbar, this extension of the lumbar structure. Feels appropriate. Lift our belt line high enough to slide the
Prop out from
underneath us and release your tailbone back down to the mat. Take a moment to pull the thighs in towards the torso and get a nice little squeeze here. Release our feet back to the mat. Think about the neutrality and the space that you have in your torso. We worked into lateral bends in both directions. We worked into extensions. We worked into flexion. And so let's just feel that space in the torso as we breathe. It feels appropriate. Bottoms of the feet coming together, knees falling out wide. As the external rotation of the hip settles into the body, feel how that also allows for more room to respirate. And draw full inhale breaths in, and then slowly, delicately release those breaths out. Give ourselves just 60 more seconds here. There's this massive storm that is starting to formulate on the horizon. And so this woman is kind of going through and making all the precautions that she makes when she settles into her little fortress, closing the gates on the first wall and locking them up, closing the gates on the second wall, locking them up, and closing the gates on the third wall, locking them up, barricading her door, and she's just about ready to go down into safe room. And the entry bell rings. And so she makes her way up to this turret where she can overlook her entrance. And she looks down and she sees this man whose clothes have certainly traveled many distances. They've traveled frequently. When it feels appropriate for you, we'll bring our knees to neutral and start a little dynamic sway. And he shouts up to her and says, can I seek shelter with you? She looks at him and she says, where's all of your stuff? I have nothing. Just the clothes I'm wearing. And she thinks about this and how suspicious that is. She says, where did you come from? And he names this place that's incredibly far away. He says, and you came here with nothing. And she's, thinking, okay, this is certainly a lie. Clearly, he wants to get in and get access to my stuff. So she says, why don't you go on to the village? You can seek shelter with someone there. And he says, no, ma'am, the village is already flooded. The storm is just moments away. Well, I'm sorry, but you can't come here. And he just looks at her and he says, I understand. And he moves along. And she watches as he disappears into the forest. She watches with a fair amount of suspicion before she makes her way back in, locks herself into this safe room in the middle of her fortress with her fortune. Next time the knees fall over to the left, let's let them settle there. And almost as if it was planned, as he disappears, the storm begins to unleash.
Knees come back to neutral. We'll follow the second side. And it's a storm like one seen before. Let's start. The water starts to rise. It breaches the first wall. It's done before. We'll bring our knees back to neutral. As you settle here, ask yourself if there's any final movement that could be advantageous for you. If there is, offer that. If you have everything you need, if you're ready for some stillness, if you're ready for your version of Shavasana, let's find our way into a shape where we can appreciate that. Your blankets, if those could be helpful. We're just drifting into our version of stillness. The rain continues to fall. These sheets, bucket after bucket. And the first time ever, the second wall is breached. And the floods start to fill the gap between the second and third wall. Finding your version of stillness here.
space between the second and third wall really rapidly. The water breached the third wall, found its way in the fortress, seeping underneath the door, filling room by room, and pressing up against this safe room. The water started to flow underneath the door of the safe room, and the safe room started to fill. Start to bring some movement to our fingers and our toes. And this woman, the water starting to get higher, our ankles to our knees. We'll bring some movement to our wrists. Our ankles, our knees. Water went up to her hips. Start to move our hips. Our shoulders, water to her shoulders. And she's now frantically trying to open the door. This huge, heavy, reinforced door, and the weight of the water made it impossible. Eventually, movement will travel through the entirety of our body. And we'll utilize that movement to bring ourselves back into a seat. In the seated space, spine gets tall, breath nice and fluid, eyes closed. And from way off in the distance, this man in this tattered clothes is watching from the top of a tree as the water completely covers this fortress of a home. With our next inhale, we'll bring our hands together at heart center. Over the course of the next 7 days, can you be hyper vigilant about the potential for security to become imprisonment? See how that impacts your experience. Thank you so much for being a part of this morning's practice, for being you. Namaste.